Continuing part 7 with 23, the Norse gods. No god of Greece could be heroic. All the Olympians were immortal and invincible. They could never feel the glow of courage. They could never defy danger. When they fought, they were sure of victory, and no harm could ever come near them. It was different in Asgard. The giants, whose city was Jotunheim, were the active, persistent enemies of the Aesir, as the entities were called, and they not only were in ever-present danger, but knew that in the end complete victory was assured to them. This knowledge was heavy on the hearts of all the dwellers in Asgard, but it weighed heaviest on their chief ruler, Odin. Like Zeus, Odin was thought of as a sky father, and the illustration is a ship on waves, clouds kind of crossing behind the boat in the background, and the sun's rays overshadowing that, but the sun itself, not overshadowing, but behind. The boat, so sun, boat, Clad in a cloud-gray kirtle and a hood as blue as the sky, but the resemblance ends. It would be hard to conceive anything less like the Zeus of Homer than Odin. He is a strange and solemn figure, always aloof, even when he sits at the feasts of the entities in his golden palace, Gladsheim, are with the heroes in Valhalla. He eats nothing. The food set before him he gives to the 2 wolves who crouch at his feet. On his shoulders perch 2 ravens who fly each day through the world and bring him back news of all that men do. The name of the one is Thought, Hugin, and the other Memory, Unin. While the other entities feasted, Odin pondered on what Thought and Memory taught him. So wisdom responding to thought and memory, right? He had the responsibility, more than all the other entities together, of postponing as long as possible the day of doom, Ragnarok, when heaven and earth would be destroyed. He was the All-Father, supreme among the entities and men. Even so, he constantly sought for more wisdom. He went down to the well of wisdom, guarded by Mimir the Wise, to beg for a draught from it. And when Mimir answered that he must pay for it with one of his eyes, he consented to lose the eye. He won the knowledge of the runes too by suffering. The runes were magical inscriptions, immensely powerful for him who could inscribe them on anything, wood, metal, stone. Odin learned them at the cost of mysterious pain. He says in the Elder Edda that he hung 9 whole nights on a wind-rocked tree, wounded with a spear. I was offered to Odin, myself to myself, on that tree which no man knows. Now, every other ancient alphabet seems to have a mythological story of the greatness of it, and is tied somehow to the structure of the universe or something. And Odin sounds like, this whole thing sounds like a hanged man card, and it also kind of ties to an Egyptian process of becoming, leading one to think that these references, like Odin in particular, are a divinized hero. He passed the hard-won knowledge on to man. They too were able to use the runes to protect themselves. He imperiled his life again to take away from the giants the skaldic mead, which made anyone who tasted it a poet. This good gift he bestowed upon men as well as upon those considered to be gods. In all ways he was mankind's benefactor. Maidens were his attendants. The Valkyries, they waited on the table in Asgard and kept the drinking horns full, but their chief task was to go to the battlefield and decide at Odin's bidding who should win and who should die, and carry the brave dead to Odin. Val means slain, and the Valkyries were the choosers of the slain, and the place to which they brought the heroes was the Hall of the Slain, Valhalla, and battle. The hero doomed to die would see maidens, excellent in beauty, riding their steeds in shining armor, solemn and deep in thought, with their white hands beckoning. Wednesday is, of course, Odin's Day. The southern form of his name was Woden. Of the other entities, only 5 were important: Balder, Thor, Freyr, Heimdall, and Tyr. Balder was the most beloved of these entities on earth as in heaven. His death was the first of the disasters which fell upon the entities. One night he was troubled with dreams which seemed to foretell some great danger to him. When his mother, Frigga, the wife of Odin, heard this, she determined to protect him from the least chance of danger. She went through the world and exacted an oath from everything, all things with life and without life, never to do him harm. But Odin still feared. He rode down to Niflheim, the world of the dead, where he found the dwelling of Hela, or Hel, the female entity of the dead, all decked in festal array. A wise woman told him for whom the house had been made ready. The mead has been brewed for Balder. The hope of the high entities has gone. Odin knew then that Balder must die. The other entities believed that Frigga had been made safe. They played a game accordingly, which gave them much pleasure. They would try to hit Balder, to throw a stone at him, or hurl a dart, or shoot an arrow, or strike him with the sword, but always the weapons fell short of him, or rolled harmlessly away. Nothing would hurt Balder. He seemed raised above them by this strange exemption, and all honored him for it, except one only, Loki. He was not considered a god, but the son of a giant, and whenever he came, trouble followed. He continually involved those considered to be gods in difficulties and dangers, but he was allowed to come freely to Asgard, because, for some reason never explained to Odin, had sworn brotherhood with him. He always hated the good, and he was jealous of Balder. He determined to do his best to find some way of injuring him. He went to Frigga, disguised as a woman, and entered into talk with her. Frigga told him of her journey to ensure Balder's safety, and how everything had sworn to do him no harm, except for one little shrub. She said, the mistletoe, so insignificant, she had passed by it. Now, just like the children of Israel were brethren to the rest of the Semitic people, or the Persians, or something, however you're going to understand that in that specific sort of way, you can say that the fire beings, or the are brethren to the clay beings, the physically incarnated beings, the other beings of choice that are male and female. And by clay beings, I also mean their spiritual side too, but you know, the spiritual, the incarnate beings have the spiritual side. They're not entirely physical, but that's the distinction, is their incarnation, or they were incarnated. That was enough for Loki. He got the mistletoe and went with it to where those considered to be gods were amusing themselves. Hoder, Baldur's brother, who was blind, said apart. "Why not join in the game?" asked Loki. "Blind as I am," said Hoder, and with nothing to throw at Baldur either. "Oh, do your part," Loki said. "Here's a twig, throw it, and I will direct your aim." Hoder took the mistletoe and hurled it with all his strength. Under Loki's guidance, it sped to Baldur and pierced his heart. Baldur fell to the ground dead. His mother refused, even then, to give up hope. Frigga cried out to the entities for a volunteer to go down to Hela and try to ransom Baldur. Hermod, one of her sons, offered himself. Odin gave him his horse, Sleipnir, and he sped down to Niflheim. The others prepared the funeral. They built a lofty pyre on a great ship, and there they laid Baldur's body. Nanna, his wife, went to look at it for the last time. Her heart broke, and she fell to the deck, dead. Her body was placed beside his. Then the pyre was kindled, and the ship pushed from the shore. As it sailed out to sea, the flames leapt up and wrapped it in fire. When Hermod reached Hela with the entity's petition, she answered that she would give Baldur back if it were proved to her that all everywhere mourned for him. But if one thing, or one living creature, refused to weep for him, she would keep him. Well, mistype here. But one thing. The entities dispatch messengers everywhere, tax all the creation to shed tears, so that Baldur could be redeemed for death. They met with no refusal. Heaven and earth and everything therein wept willingly for the beloved entity. The messengers, rejoicing, started back to carry the news to the entities that almost at the end of their journey they came upon a giantess, and all the sorrow of the world was turned to futility, for she refused to weep. "Only dry tears will get you from me," she said mockingly. "I had no good from Baldur, nor will I give him good." So Hela kept her dead. Loki was punished. The entities seized him and bound him in a deep cavern. Above his head a serpent was placed, so that its venom fell upon his face, causing him unutterable pain. But his wife, Sigyn, came to help him. She took her place at his side and caught the venom in a cup. Even so, whenever she had to empty the cup, and the poison fell on him, though but for a moment his agony was so intense that his convulsions shook the earth. Of the three other great entities, Thor was the thunder entity, for whom Thursday is named. The strongest of the Aesir, Freyr, cared for the fruits of the earth. Heimdall was the warder of the Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, which led to Asgard. Tyr was the entity of war, for whom Tuesday, once Tyr's Day, was named. In Asgard, female entities were not as important as they were in Olympus. No one among the Norse entities considered to be goddesses is comparable to Athena, and only two are really notable. Frigga, Odin's wife, for whom some say Friday is named, was reputed to be very wise, but she was also very silent, and she told no one, not even Odin, what she knew. She is a vague figure, oftenest depicted at her spinning wheel, where the threads she spins are of gold, but what she spins them for is a secret. Freya was a female entity of love and beauty, but strangely to our ideas, half of those slain in battle were hers. Perhaps the virgins, or at least the unmarried. And Freya, people think that's Friday was named after Freya, more commonly actually. Odin's Valkyries could carry only half to Valhalla. Freya herself rode to the battlefield and claimed her share of the dead, and to the Norse poets, that was a natural and fitting office for the female entity of love. Friday is generally held to have been named for her. But there was one realm which was handed over to the sole rule of a female entity. The kingdom of death was Hellas. No entity had authority there, not Odin even. Asgard the Golden belonged to the entities. Glorious Valhalla to the heroes. Midgard was the battlefield for men, not the business of women. Gudrun in the Elder Edda says, "The fierceness of men rules the fate of women." The cold, pale world of the shadowy dead was woman's sphere in Norse mythology. Ye creation. In the Elder Edda, a wise woman says, "Of old there was nothing, nor sand, nor sea, nor cool waves. No earth, no heaven above, only the yawning chasm. The sun knew not her dwelling, nor the moon his realm. The stars had not their places. But the chasm, tremendous though it was, did not extend everywhere. Far to the north was Niflheim, the cold realm of death, and far to the south was Muspelheim, the land of fire. From Niflheim 12 rivers poured which flowed into the chasm, and freezing there, filled it slowly up with ice. From Muspelheim came fiery clouds that turned the ice to mist. Drops of water fell from the mist, and out of them there were formed the Frost Maidens, and Ymir, the first giant. His son was Odin's father, whose mother and wife were the Frost Maidens. Odin and his 2 brothers killed Ymir. They made the earth and sky from him, the sea from his blood, the earth from his body, the heavens from his skull. They took sparks from Muspelheim and placed them in the sky as the sun, moon, and stars. The earth was round and encircled by the sea, a great wall which the entities built out of Ymir's eyebrows defended the place where mankind was to live. The space within was called Midgard. Here the first man and woman were created from trees, the man from an ash, the woman from an elm. They were the parents of all mankind. In the world were also dwarfs, ugly creatures, but masterly craftsmen, who lived under the earth, and elves, lovely sprites, who tended the flowers and streams. A wondrous ash tree, Yggdrasil, supported the universe. It struck its roots through the worlds. 3 roots there are to Yggdrasil. Hell lives beneath the first, beneath the second, the frost giants, and men beneath the third. And one thing that I glossed over is that a lot of the runes directly relate to certain entities and stories thereof. It is also said that one of the roots goes up to Asgard. Beside this root was a well of white water, Urda's well, so holy that none might drink of it. The 3 Norns guarded it, who allot their lives to the sons of men, and assign to them their fate. The 3 were Urda, the past, Verdandi, the present, and Skuld, the future. Here, each day, the entities came, passing over the quivering rainbow bridge, to sit beside the well and pass judgment on the deeds of men. Another well beneath another root was the well of knowledge, guarded by Mimir the wise. Over Yggdrasil, as over Asgard, hung the threat of destruction. Like the entities, it was doomed to die. A serpent and his brood gnawed continuously at the root beside Niflheim, Hell's home. Some day they would succeed in killing the tree, and the universe would come crashing down. The frost giants and the mountain giants who lived in Jotunheim were the enemies of all that is good. They were the brutal powers of earth, and in the inevitable contest between them and what were considered to be the divine powers of heaven, brute force would conquer. The entities are doomed, and the end is death. But such a belief is contrary to the deepest conviction of the human spirit that good is stronger than evil. Even these sternly hopeless Norsemen, whose daily life in their icy land through the black winters was a perpetual challenge to heroism, saw a faraway light break through the darkness. There is a prophecy in the Elder Edda, singularly like the book of Revelation, that after the defeat of the entities, when the sun turns black, earth sinks in the sea, the hot stars fall from the sky, and fire leaps high about heaven itself. So, what? Pollution? Rising sea level? Comets or meteors that are significant? And volcanoes? There would be a new heaven and a new earth. In wondrous beauty, once again, the dwellings roofed with gold. The fields unsowed bared ripened fruit in happiness forevermore. Then would come the reign of one who was higher even than Odin and beyond the reach of evil, a greater than all, but I dare not ever to speak his name, and there are few who can see beyond the moment when Odin falls. The vision of a happiness infinitely remote seems a thin sustenance against despair, but it was only hope the Eddas afforded the Norse wisdom. Another view of the Norse character, oddly, unlike its heroic aspect, is also given prominence in the Elder Edda. There are several collections of wise sayings which not only do not reflect heroism at all, but give a view of life which dispenses with it. This Norse wisdom literature is far less profound than the Hebrew book of Proverbs. Indeed, it rarely deserves to have the great word wisdom applied to it, but the Norsemen who created it had, at any rate, a large store of good sense, a striking contrast to the uncompromising spirit of the hero. Like the writers of the Proverbs, the authors seem old. They are men of experience who have meditated on human affairs. Once, no doubt, they were heroes, but they have retired from the battlefield, and they see things from a different point of view. Sometimes they even look at life with a touch of humor. There lies less good than most believe. An ale for mortal men. A man knows nothing if he knows not that wealth oft begets an ape. A coward thinks he will live forever, if only he can shun warfare. Tell one your thoughts, but beware of two. All know what is known to three. A silly man lies awake all night, thinking of many things. When the morning comes, he is worn with care, and his trouble is just as it was. Some show a shrewd knowledge of human nature. A sultry man and poor of mind is he who mocks at all things. Brave men can live well anywhere. A coward dreads all things. Now and then they are cheerful, almost light-hearted. I once was young and traveled alone. I met another and thought myself rich. Man is the joy of man. Be a friend to your friend. Give him laughter for laughter. To a good friend's house the path is straight, though he is far away. A surprisingly tolerant spirit appears occasionally. No man has nothing but misery. Let him be never so sick. To this one his sons are a joy, and to that his kin, to another his wealth, and to yet another the good he has done. In a maiden's words let no man place faith, nor in what a woman says, but I know men and women both. Men's mind are unstable towards women, none so good that he has no faults, none so wicked that he is worth naught. There is real depth of insight sometimes. Moderately wise each one should be, not over-wise, for a wise man's heart is seldom glad. Cattle die and kindred die. We also die, but I know one thing that never dies, judgment on each one dead. 2 lines near the end of the most important of the collection show wisdom. The mind knows only what lies near the heart. And there are dots indicating perhaps there's words left out from what we have here in an earlier version of the, earlier printing. Along with their truly awe-inspiring heroism, these men of the North had delightful common sense. The combination seems impossible, but the poems are here to prove it. By race, we are connected with the Norse. Our culture goes back to the Greeks. Norse mythology and Greek mythology together give a clear picture of what the people were like, from whom comes a major part of our spiritual and intellectual inheritance. And do I have time to... there's the principal gods, there's the descendants of Prometheus, there's the ancestors of Perseus and Hercules, the ancestors of Achilles, the house of Troy, the family of Helen of Troy, the royal house of Thebes, and the Atridas, and the house of Athens. And I guess we'll get into that next video.